I can, I will, I must. That is the mindset that we learn from Parshas Bamidbar. And that is the mindset that one should have going into Shavuos. I can, I will, I must. And we pick things up at the beginning of this Sefer Bamidbar Sinai. And after a rather brief introduction, Pasuk Beis, Su'u es rosh kol adas b'nei Yisrael l'mishbechosam l'veis avosam. Su'u es rosh. Do that. Well, what does Su'u es rosh mean? Well, let us look at Rashi. I was perplexed, and I too looked at Rashi. But like a child sitting out in the freezing cold Siberian winter without even the slightest windbreaker on, there is no Rashi to help us. What does the word Su'u mean? Clearly it's self-explanatory, or it's something we should know, otherwise Rashi would tell us. After freaking out for a couple minutes, I thought, wait, let me look at the Ramban. Maybe Nachmanides will help us out. And sure enough, we were able to find our way back inside to the cozy, warm house of clarity. For the Ramban tells us, Su'u, it literally means to lift up your head. Su'u es rosh, lift up, es rosh, your head. The Ramban translates it. Lift up your head to be counted, as is clearly evident from the rest of the pasuk. Each individual of the assembly of Israel should come forward based on their house. Let's figure out where they're from. Let's understand their names. Let's figure out everyone in Klal Yisrael. Raise your head to be counted. The counting begins. Hashem says to count, then, well, we're going to count. The tribal leaders are named. We figure out how many people are from the tribe of Ruvain, Shimon, Gad, Yehuda, Yisachar. And as we make our way through this parsha, the more you turn the pages to figure out when the exciting stories of all of the gallantry and mutinies will happen in Sefer Bamidbar, we find really just more statistics. More of the counting of the exact amount of Israelites there are. We get the total. We figure out some laws about the Levium. Before we have another counting, we figure out some more longitude and latitude for the exact location of each and every tribe, where they should be in their surrounding encampments around the Mishkan. It's very much a, God forbid we should call it dry. That you can hear the peanut gallery saying, wake me up when the good stuff should arrive. Wake me up when the su'u, when the raising of the head, the census is complete. Wake me up when Korach rebels, or when Pinchas shish kebabs the sinners. So our first question is, why is the su'u es rosh so important? Why does the Torah elongate? Feel the need to express clearly and definitively every single individual's su'u es rosh? And question number 2. And halt cup, hear me out for a second, for we're going to enter into the study halls, pull up a chair, take a seat, and reference a Gemara, reference a Tosfos, and understand a question, and then lead us into the promised land where Rav Moshe Feinstein tells us the answer that ties, or with Hashem's help, will tie everything together. The Gemara can be found in Mesech Megillah, Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Beis, Tanya Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Ezra Tikein Lahem LiYisrael, Shiu Koirin Kalala Shebatayras Kahanim Koidem Atzeres, V'Shebemishna Torah Koidem Rosh Hashanah. Ezra enacted that the Jewish people should read the portion of the curses that are in Sefer Vayikra, Parshas Bechukosai, before Shavuos, and the portion of the curses that are recorded in Sefer Devarim before Rosh Hashanah. And the Gemara asks why. My time, what is the reason for this enactment, for this decree, for this insertion? Amar Abaye v'Itei Rish Lakish, a dispute about who said the following statement. The reason is for Kedei Shetichle Hashana V'Klal Loisa, so that the year, as it concludes, should conclude with its curses. That is to say, that we end the year, go into Rosh Hashanah anew, and keep your curses for the last year, and this year should be a year of blessing. Your obvious question is probably, if you're halting cup, what the Gemara asks over here, the Gemara takes an issue with this statement. Bishlama sheba Mishnah Torah, I understand. It's a new year in Devarim when Ika Kadesh Tichla Shana V'Kaloseh, we're going into Rosh Hashanah. It's that time of year. Ela Shebetayras Kayanim after Parshas Bechukosai. At this time point, Otu Atzeres Rosh Hashanah is the day of Shavuos, any sort of new year. So why do we need to Tichla Shana Im Klal Loisel? What year is ending for the curses to end with it? The Gemara answers, you made a mistake. In fact, yes, in Atzeres Nami Rosh Hashanah, Shavuos is a Rosh Hashanah, a new year. Ditznan uva Atzeres al Peiros Ha'ilon, that Shavuos, divine judgment is made concerning the fruits of the trees, our produce, what we will accomplish at a deeper level in our results of our spiritual pursuits. And as we glance to the outer margin to try to understand this Gemara, as we look at Tosfos, we figure out that what was the actual takana? What do we do to separate between the curses of Bechukosai and Shavuos? Something actually practical seems to be enacted. Bamidbar Sinai. We read Sinai. We read this week's parsha, Bamidbar. We begin the book of Numbers, Kaidem Atzeres Kedei Shelo Lahamshech, in order that we do not lahasmich, do not juxtapose, connect haklalos shebechukosai, the klalos of last week, bechukosai, to Shavuos. It is Bamidbar that stands as the wall, as the mechitza, the guardrail between the bad and hopefully the future good. And Rav Moshe Feinstein, he wants to know why. Why is it that Bamidbar, what do we have? What does Tosfos see that specifically the Eibishter chose that Bamidbar and what we learn and all the statistics and the counting and the encampment, why is that what should shut off the klalos and lead us into a happy acceptance of the Torah? And says the great Rav Moshe Feinstein in his Sefer Darash Moshe, this piece is tucked away right after Parshas Bechukosai. It's underneath the title of On the Holiday of Shavuos. Says Rav Moshe that there's a tremendous connection between Shavuos and Parshas Bamidbar. Because when we were supposed to be accepting the Torah with excitement, with great fervor, as a nasa v'nishma, akimu v'kiblu, Hashem, I can't thank you enough that you chose me to follow your mitzvos. Many people doubt themselves of their sufficient abilities to be able to pull through on the Torah. Many people feel a bit hesitant about saying Nasa v'nishma. Gentlemen will think 2,700 bleta of Gemara that I have to finish, 14 books of the Rambam, and I have to schedule my life around Hashem and all of his mitzvos, la'asok b'Torah. I would love to Nasa v'nishma. I would love to commit to doing everything, and I would love to speak to Hashem thrice daily. But it's a lot to ask. Yes, I want to shout out loud Nasa v'nishma, and I want the angels to come and put crowns on my head on the 6th of Sivan. But it ain't so easy to not forward a bit of gossip to my friend when it's kind of funny. It isn't so hard to refrain from intermingling with other nations and intermingling with Gentiles. It isn't so easy to serve Hashem with love, v'yahavta, es Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha. It feels hopeless. It feels like the kimu v'kiblu, the reacceptance with love that we're supposed to have. Every Shavuos, it feels distant and it feels impossible. Zok Moshe, Zok Tosfos, Zok the Gemara with its enactment. Read Sefer Bamidbar. What do you see? You'll see it right at the beginning. You can't miss it. Se'u es rosh. Lift up your head. Says Rav Moshe. The counting is Moshe meeting the people and looking them dead in the eye and saying that you are one of the Jewish people. You are one of these 600,000 individuals. You are one, just like the great Rav Shmuel Kamenetsky is one, and just like the Stipler was one. Lift your head up and understand your significance, your distinctiveness. Se'u is a counting of an understanding of self-worth. A mensch will think, he's bisrashel. He gives up hope. Lilmud b'machshavam shelo yagiu l'madrega gedola. He cannot become a gadol b'Yisrael. He cannot do everything that's expected of him. But we must be counted. You must know that you are the same one of the Jewish people as the greatest gadol b'Yisrael. That oneness, that lifting up of your head and recognizing of what happened and what changed at Har Sinai, and the clarity that you have and the innate potential that you can bring out, just like every single great Torah giant that's counted in that 600,000, that you can be like them, that needs to be impressed deeply into the hearts and souls of each Jew. It really is a frightening thing that the world is so obsessed with giving a certain name, a diagnosis. It can't just be that one is sick or one has anxiety. It has to be actually determined that it is a chronic anxiety. It's an OCD. It has to be determined that this person doesn't just have a headache. It's a migraine headache, type C. There needs to be a certain label slapped upon it. And we can do that, God forbid, in ourselves and our own potential, that whatever the reality is, we can label ourselves as that reality. And as the Yetzer Hara continues to shackle us into our jail cells to believe that, well, I chose earner, not learner, well, therefore, that's my reality. And I can't switch teams to become a learner. But as the Satan continues to do, is he chains us to the ground and doesn't let us see out of our jail cells to see the new, fresh reality and what our true kochos are. Se'u es rosh, you raise your head to see above the jail cell, and you recognize what you can accomplish. It's one of my favorite psukim in all of Psalms and all of Tehillim. Psalms 42, it's Mem Beis. It is Pasuk Yod Gimel. V'adam bikar bal yolin nimshal kabahemas nidmu. And man, bikar in his glory. Bal yolin, if he doesn't get it, if he doesn't get his greatness, well, then nimshal kabahemas nidmu, he's no greater than an animal. If you don't chap your yakar, your grandeur, what it means to have seichel and choose and do in your gifts, well, then you can be very easily compared to an animal that walks upon 4 feet and eats animal food. An incredible story here that really sheds light on this. The great Reb Chaim Volozhiner was once walking with a couple of his students, and off on the side of the road, there was a small little kind of skinny-looking Gentile fellow trying to get his animal, a big, strapping bull, to move forward. Trying to tell it, come here, Bessie, because that was the name of the bull. Trying to get it to move, pushing it, yelling at it, but nothing. And all of a sudden, he picked up the whip, or maybe it was the spur on the back of his boot, and dug it into the bull whipped the bull and said, "Giddy up." And sure enough, the bull started to go. The boy got its attention. The Gentile got the bull to listen to him. And Reb Chaim told his students, he said, why doesn't that bull just turn around and pounce on that little fella? Pulverize him. But you know why? Because v'adam bikar bal yola nimshal gebehemus nidmu, the animal doesn't understand that it can do that. It doesn't chap. Its tendency or how it's been pre-wired by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, its instinct, it just doesn't get that it can trounce an animal that has that innate fear. But ladies and gentlemen, if we go into Har Sinai without thoughts that we can be great, without thought that you can stop a certain sin, if we go into the holiday of Shavuos, to our Nasev and Nishma Day, with thoughts that we are nothing greater than a bull, and we do not understand that we can turn around and pounce on our Yetzer Hara, well then, we're lacking our Se'uas Rosh, a held head erect, and we're lacking the mindset that's going to get us to the promised land of actually becoming God-fearing, successful Jews. A person needs to take a deep look into the mirror and see himself and recognize what it is that are his gifts and what it is that he can accomplish. Rabbi Yerucham, the great mirror mashkiach during the Roaring Twenties, the great spiritual dean, he said once that oy vavoy, oy, it's shrekloch, it's terrible when a mensch doesn't know just how many struggles he has. He doesn't understand where his Yetzer Hara is getting him, and he's never made a cheshbon nefesh to understand what he struggles with. Perhaps maybe how lazy he is. But doubly woe. But woe, oy vavoy, is it if a mensch doesn't understand what his gifts are, what his milos are. For his entire reason, his soul has been sent down to this earth in order that he develop his gifts, that he use his amelos to bring out the flowering of his devotion to Hashem and his obedience to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mitzvahs, to place himself up in the beautiful paradise of Olam Haba. He's never going to be able to accomplish that if he doesn't understand his gifts. If he doesn't understand that I can, that I will, and I must. Rav Moshe tells us that this is Se'uas Rosh, lift up your head, both literally to be counted, but also homiletically, metaphorically lift up your head. This is what we learn from Sefer Bamidbar, from Parshas Bamidbar, that separates between the curses, the lowness, and the recognizing of our abilities as we have to raise our head. As Tosfos says, going into the new year of Shavuos. Someone will still say, okay, I have the potential, but there's a whole lot to do. Rome wasn't built in a day. It is a lot to commit to keeping. So, to address that question, I gave it some thought, and I would like to tell you a personal anecdote about myself. It's something I came up with for a struggle that I have. I tend to see myself as an impulsive person. I'd like to keep myself from making some quick decisions. Got to think more methodically, make sure that we're coming out with the right decision, and then slowly see to it that it gets done. You rush into decisions, you make mistakes. But it's hard. So I made a commitment once to work on it. As Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem Seichel Tov Lechol Osehem, you have to actually do something. Seichel that is straight is given to those who do. So I decided that every time a music comes on in my car, I select a song. I am not going to change the song until the song has come to its end. To try to work on patience. Not get the high from the chorus I'm looking for and then skip to the next song. I'm going to wait. I was able to do it for a day or two, but over time, it was too hard. I am unafraid to admit that it's just too brutal to listen to the same high part twice, especially when my next favorite song is up next. It's just too much to commit to. But then I cut the Kabbalah super small, super finite. So now it is that only one day a week on Mondays, I don't skip songs, and I work on patience. I hope to eventually maybe gain some confidence in this area before taking the next step and maybe becoming one day a patient, more methodical person. And perhaps broadening this concept, this can be taken and used at a more broad scale for all of Hashem's Torah. For if you are a student coming to Hashem and saying, Nashta v'nishma Hashem, we will do and we will understand. But Hashem, I'm fully there, but I'm working towards it. Because if I commit to doing it all right now, to being patient, to finishing Shas in a day, impossible. But I'm in. I am your Eved. I am Nasa v'nishma, and see that I've made a practical change. And probably then Hashem will be pretty excited that you actually have made a decision that will help you to go up one rung and gain some confidence. You do one amud a day. You work on some patience a little bit a day. And when the king sees that his Eved, or when the teacher sees that his student is putting in the effort, is actually staying late in class, spending 5 extra minutes to study a bit more, don't you think that the expert principal and teacher is going to be proud of your new commitment, your new Nasa v'nishma? So it's Se'u'es Rosh. It's where Rav Moshe says to understand that you can become like a Rav Moshe Feinstein. You can become an absolute Gadol b'Yisrael, somebody that has authentic fear of heaven. That when left alone in a room will say, Hashem is watching me, and you will have that same beautiful and peaceful Shemona Esrei, no matter who's watching. It is in the wilderness of Sinai that the Jewish people, they must be counted, for they must know that each and every single one of them, you can't be great. And Bamidbar must be read before Shavuos, says Tosfos, so that this lesson can be taught going in to the holiday. And it's for exactly this reason, you guessed it, that the statistics must be documented clearly. Because every single person must be accounted for. Every single individual must know his distinctive nature and know from which cloth he was cut from. That's Nasa v'nishma. That's Adam Bikar. That's a person understanding his gifts. That's what we should go into Shavuos with, that mindset. Take a minute, pen down on paper your gifts. Look yourself in the mirror and say, I can, I will, and I must. Take that mindset with you into the holiday of Shavuos. When you recommit and refresh your commitments to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you take one small step closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It is in the wilderness of Sinai that we learn this, that I can, I will, I must.
Kilam kedoshim